How many of you guys sell simplified issue, life insurance, final expense, mortgage protection? Raise your hand real quick. I want to see who I'm talking to, because I didn't see a lot of hands go up for Medicare. So, okay. So the first thing I want to let you know is when I do a talk, there's three things that I'm really thinking in regards to you guys. What do I want them to know? What do I want them to do? And what do I want them to feel? So Adam did a good job touching on it earlier. He talked a lot about making a decision, finding out what drives you. This business is tough. It's not sunshine and rainbows. The upside comes with a price to pay. So I want to start with telling you guys a story. I want to thank Dave, before I do that, for the opportunity. I'm humbled to be here, and definitely humbled with the company that's here. There's some big players in the room, so I appreciate the opportunity. So the story I want to tell you guys goes like this. So the story's about a little boy and his father. And his father is a workaholic. Work, 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 work. The little boy comes into the father's office. He says, "Daddy, will you come play with me?" The father says, "Not right now, son. I'm busy." The son leaves. 5 minutes later, son comes back. "Hey, Daddy, will you play with me now?" The father says, "Not right now, son. I'm busy." So the son walks out, comes back, must be 5 minutes later. "Dad, will you play with me now?" And by this time, the dad, he's a workaholic. He's really trying to focus here. He's starting to get a little frustrated. And he looks to his left. He sees today's paper. And on the cover, there's a picture of the globe, picture of the world. He tears it off. He tears it up into 100 pieces, picture of the world. He walks into the other room, gives it to his son. He says, "Son, here, put this puzzle together. It's a picture of the world. When you finish the puzzle, then I can come outside and play with you." So the dad thinks, "Yeah, I bought myself some time. It's going to take him a while." Goes back into the office, starts working. Little boy comes right back in, 5 minutes. He says, "Daddy, I'm done. Will you play with me now?" And the dad, obviously, he's thinking, there's no way this kid did this. So he gets up, he walks out, walks to the other room, and to his amazement, the little boy has put the puzzle together. Everything is in its proper place. Everything is organized. It's all exactly how it was before he tore it into shreds. And the father scratches his head in amazement. And he says, "Son, how did you do that?" And the little boy says, "It was simple, Dad. On the back of the page, there was a picture of a man. And once I put the man together, the world came together." If you guys want your world to get better, you've got to get better. We are the variable. I can't give you any new talents today, but I hope to activate it, because you guys have all the talent you need. The thing that separates, I heard, I believe it was Evan mention, who's coasting, who's crushing it. The thing that really separates people is not talent. It's just those who make a decision. So before you can make a difference, you got to make a decision. So I'm here to talk about final expense, and I'm going to give you guys some tactics and some tricks that you can really apply in the home, things that I've done. I've been in the business for 8 years. I'm growing an agency. We focus in the senior market. So I'm going to give you some tactical strategies like you can take notes on and you can apply these things and it'll help you. But, you know, one of my best mentors I've had always told me, it's really not about the how. People can figure out how. It's the people who have the ambition, the people who make a decision, the people who have the why. That's it. It's the people who are afraid but do it anyway. So I just wanted to share that. I wanted to let you guys know that because I think it's very important. If I come up here and just talk to you about how to talk to old people about insurance, I feel like I would be selling you short. And I'm sorry for the old people phrase. I sometimes I like to simplify what we do. It's like in my videos sometimes I'm like, guys, we sell life insurance to people you'd see at Walmart. But we've got people and agents who are afraid to like jump in and to really get going with this. We get in our own heads and we build things into cathedrals when they're really anthills we could step over. So I'm going to get into some tactical stuff now. I'm going to go through the in-home presentation, not like a mock presentation, but I'm going to talk to you about like 8 things that will help you. 8 things that happen throughout the house. Some things you need to do before you get to the house. And to be honest with you, that's the bigger variable. It's not about, you know, what you say or what your presentation is. It's who are you? When you show up to somebody's door, who are you? What kind of individual are you? Have you worked on yourself? The presentation can only take you so far. So I encourage you guys to read books, listen to audios, change how you think, because that's a real thing. I have changed so much, and I got a long way to go. But it's a continuous process of self-improvement, improving yourself. Then when you get out here and I'm just being honest, you get out here and you've been working on yourself, you've read these books, and you're sitting with folks who like haven't. They aren't working on themselves. They're not operating on the same level as you. You have a massive advantage. So, okay, the first thing I want to talk to, that rolls right into, in regards to let's say I dial the phone on Monday and I book myself 8 appointments to sell final expense, mortgage protection. And so let's say I book that for the following day. So I call on Monday, I'm going to see them on Tuesday. When you get into your car, when I get into my car, I want you to turn your vehicle into a rolling university. In the FE world, we have to cover some ground. If you're doing face-to-face direct mail, you're going to have to drive. Use that drive time. Listen to Zig Ziglar. Hear what he says about how we live in a cat-kicking world. Jim Rohn, listen to him about personal philosophy. Listen to John Maxwell. Listen to Dave Duford. Greetings and salutation. So turn your car into a rolling university. And when you're driving and you got an hour in the car, that's the very first part. You're preparing yourself mentally. You're reprogramming yourself truly is what you're doing. This does not happen overnight. Okay? This takes a long time. I've hit personal goals in my life. It took a lot longer than I thought it was going to be honest. But it happens. It's a cumulative effect. So I encourage you all to work on yourselves, and it makes a huge difference. So I also heard, I think Evan as well, mentioned meditation. Like prepping your mind for the day. I've always noticed that if I wake up at 8 a.m. and I start watching Netflix, or I start watching a movie, or I start doing some kind of like lazier activity, my day is downhill from there. Always. It doesn't start lazy and then I am killing it. But if I wake up at 4:30 and go to the gym at 5, and I come home and I make my bed and I I get into my office and I get to work, it's a productive day. So if you're writing down the steps, there's 10 things I want you to write down. I told you 8, there's 10. Number 1 is a rolling university. And that's listening to encouraging audio. And the last thing I'll mention in regards to the rolling university, Adam mentioned mixing your knowledge today with faith. Well, faith comes by hearing. Faith comes by hearing. So what are you listening to? Are you hearing encouragement? Because if you don't hear it, you won't be able to grow your faith or develop your faith. And I'm not talking spiritually, I'm talking about like faith and belief in yourself and in your business and what you can do. So faith comes by hearing. So pay attention to what you are listening to, what you are hearing. The first thing that I physically am trying to do, like turn my car into a rolling university. I'm going to the appointments, right? We talked about having 8 appointments in a day. You want to jam up income producing activities. You don't want to drive this business is meant to be driven like a race car. If you try to drive, a race car stoplight to stoplight, you're not using it properly. It's uncomfortable. It's bumpy. It's a loud engine. It's not enjoyable. So you've got to run in the field, I think. You've got to jam up your appointments and run the business the way it's meant to be run. If you try to piddle with the business, I've never met anybody that gets good results that piddles. I would rather go out one day from the time I leave my house to the time I get home and be gone 15 to 17 hours and write $3,500 or write $5,000 in premium than I would, have 3 appointments on Monday, and then I got up and I got dressed and I drove there, and then I had 3 appointments on Tuesday, and so jam up your activity. And so the first thing I try to do with a brand new agent, like if I have a brand new agent who is brand new to final expense, the first thing I'm trying to do, what I would call would be this agent's foundation. Like you feel like you're building a house, you need a foundation. The first thing I try to cultivate, or I get them trying to think like this, is I want them to develop a servant mindset. So and this is to help you as well. So for a few years, this has been my personal mantra in the field. I'm here to serve, not to sell. I'm here to serve, not to sell. The reason I came up with that is because I was trying to hit production numbers. I was putting a ton of pressure on myself. I was thinking about closing. I was trying to operate like a hammer. I was thinking about my numbers, and so I started treating people like numbers. And yeah, your energy changes. So every successful salesperson that I have met has learned to ride this line of, yes, they want to make a lot of money, but they're able to compartmentalize, and they know how to put the clients first and focus on the serving first. And if you do that, you'll connect better, you'll make more sales, the money will come as a byproduct. So when you're focused on the numbers and closing and blah, 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 that's where you've heard the phrase, you get this commission breath. You're like, they can smell it on you. You're really not there for them, you're there for you. And when you get into this servant mindset, like if you start saying this stuff to yourself, I'm here to serve, not to sell. And I would do this when I would start to feel internal pressure. Because you can only do so much. You can't make people buy. You can influence them, you can have competitive products, you can be well trained, you can let the numbers work in your advantage, but you cannot take one appointment and make them a client. So when you start to remind yourself of this, I'm here to serve, not to sell. I'm here to serve, not to sell. You're slipping into more of an abundance mindset rather than a desperation mindset. I hope that makes sense to you. I've lived it out. I've done it both ways. And that's why this has become a staple for me to try to cultivate that servant mindset. And that's what step number 1 has everything to do with, is turning that car into a rolling university, putting positive things in your mind, setting the tone. You're priming the pump so that when you meet with somebody, you're in a good state. So that would be number 2. Try to cultivate a servant mindset. Okay. So once we get into the home, the very first thing, really not even when you get in the home. So when you pull up in front of a home, I want you to know this. The game has begun. When you pull your car up and you park in front of their house or you park in their driveway, you're on stage. The performance has begun. They could be looking at you outside your window. They could be watching you when you don't know. So don't pull up. Oh, God, I'm running 15 minutes late. Don't be digging through your bag. Don't be mad. Don't be frustrated. Don't be sitting out in your car. When you pull up, be ready to exit the vehicle quickly. Your stuff's ready to go. Be ready to exit. Exit the vehicle quickly. Shut the door. This is a door knock or an appointment. Walk to the door with some pace. Don't mosey, because when you mosey, your energy is different. Walk with some pace. Walk with some pace. Get to the door. Boom, boom, boom. As soon as I get into the home, the first thing I always say, I always ask them the same exact question without fail. Well, when they come to the door, I say, "Hello, you must be Mary." I'm smiling. I'm goofy. I'm not trying to be cool Joe. I'm just, "Hello, you must be Mary." I'm trying to be disarming. I'm trying to be friendly. I'm smiling. They let me in the house. First thing I say is, "How long y'all lived out here? How long have you lived out here?" "Oh, 20 years. Woo! Long enough to know if you like it." And they laugh. "Oh yeah, we like it." Or they'll say, "No, we hate it." I'm like, "Oh, y'all got a kitchen table? I got something I gotta get out." And I got my bag on, so I slap my bag. And so we're going to the table. What's beginning to happen as soon as you get into the door, this would be number 3, is you're beginning to build rapport. So you can look for things in the house. Here's a great question to ask. "Oh, are these the grandkids? Oh, how many you got? You see them a lot? They keep you pretty busy? Huh. These must be your children? They live close by? What kind of work do they do? You know, we haven't even sat down yet, and I'm asking about them." That's one thing with rapport building, just a principle you can take. You need to let them talk 80 to 90% of the time. You need to talk about 10 to 20% of the time. You need to let them talk. And people love, love, love to talk about themselves. And you can tell some of the clients who have been deprived of this for a long time. Because your eyes start to roll back in your head and you're, yeah, and you've got to pull them back and get back on track. So, I'm gonna grab my water here. Rapport building it's just, with experience, you will eventually have a repertoire of questions, like a toolbox. You guys can probably tell. Like I've said this 1,000 times. I'm up in front of a big group of people, and like it's back here. It's just in my subconscious mind because I've said this so many times. "How long y'all lived out here?" Whoa, long enough to know if you like it. Another good question to ask with rapport building. Tell me the story behind this. See something you like in the house. There's an American flag framed. There's a picture where they look like they might have been on vacation. Take interest in them. You see a funky looking coffee table. You see something that you like. It's better if you have a genuine interest in it. This isn't something you can always incorporate. Say, tell me the story behind this. And then they get to talk. And here's something I wanted to let you know that I realized with experience. The more you let them talk about themselves, the more that they tell you about themselves, the more they like and trust you. You would think, well, I mean, before I got in this business, I would have thought, well, don't they want to like see my license? Don't they want to know about me? Don't they want to know if I'm reputable? Like, no, just let them talk about themselves. And the more they talk, you can feel it. Their guard comes down, they start to relax, you're relaxed. So the more you let them talk, the more that they like and trust you. So I think that what I'm going to cover here on the fourth little point, there's some people that do it, I'm sure. I was never trained on this per se. It's something I kind of incorporated myself over the years, and I'm sure there are other individuals that do it, but I wouldn't know who they are. So what I'm about to tell you, I think, is kind of unique, and it makes a big deal. And if you do this, what I think it allows you to do is you start to engage in something called downhill selling. Downhill selling. See, people who don't know how to sell, it can feel like they've got a 250-pound backpack and they're going uphill and it's hard and they're getting rejected and they're getting no-shows and it's difficult. Sales is tough, man. Well, I'm going to tell you how to do downhill selling so you can stop walking uphill and make this a little bit easier on yourself, okay? So I'm in the home. I've built rapport, I've asked some questions. The guards have come down. We're starting to get some connection. And by this time, we're at the kitchen table. And what I'll say, this is a transitional story. If you're writing this down, it's a transitional story. So I might say something like, well, Mary, we could probably talk all day. Seems we've got a lot in common. But let me kind of tell you why I got into this business. And what I want you guys to notice here, before I tell this story, I'm going to tell you a story that I actually tell every client that I sit with. I want you to notice my tone and how I change. Because you see, I said we're transitioning. So when I first came in, I'm saying, how long y'all lived out here? Whoa, long enough to know if you like it. Well, now, when we're trying to evoke emotion, we're trying to get emotion out of them, we're going to change. So we're going to change our tone. So I would say, hey, Mary, we could talk all day, but let me kind of tell you why I got into this business. So, long story short, my mom and dad were married for 20 years. And 20 years into the marriage, my mom left. And when my mom left, my dad fell apart. They were both off the rails. Lost a job, lost a house, big financial mess. And so me, my brother, and my sister, we all moved in with our Grandma Ruth. I was 14, my brother was 12, and my sister was 7. And when I was 17, my grandma got diagnosed with breast cancer. And when I was 20, she passed away. And so I was only 20. The financial burden didn't fall on me, Mary, but I remember my dad freaking out. wondering, man, he's got his 3 kids are living in grandma's house. What's going to happen? Where are my kids going to live? What's going to happen to grandma's house? How are we going to pay for the funeral? You know, all things that everybody wonders about when someone passes. And so my grandma was old school and responsible, and she had her ducks in a row. So when she passed, my dad got enough money to take care of the funeral, paid for the cremation. She did a cremation with a viewing, and he had enough money left over to pay the mortgage payment for like 6 months. So he didn't get $1 million, but he just got a little bit of money that let him tread water and figure out what he was going to do next. So that's why I feel good about what I'm here to do today, Mary. But help me understand your situation. I don't know where you were or what was going on in your life when you got the card and sent it in. But what was it that made you decide to get this? So, what happens here, guys, is if we come in the home and we've prepped our mind, we've listened to encouraging audio, we are really trying to put our selfishness aside. We can't always do it. We're human. But we're really trying to put our selfishness aside. We're trying to show up with a servant mindset. We do build some rapport. We let them talk. We ask about them. We show an interest. We transition with an emotional story, and we drop in tone, and we lean in, and we wrinkle our forehead, and we tell them a story. When I ask that question, I don't know where you were or what was going on in your life when you got the card and sent it in, but what was it that made you decide to get this? When I ask that, they tell me. And when they tell you that why they've decided to get this, that is how you have now engaged in downhill selling. Because pretty quickly, you're finding out why they've decided to get this. Now, I'll throw in, if you don't do a good job, if you try to tell your story while the TV's blaring, if you didn't ask them to turn the TV off, if you really don't have their attention, then you can't affect them as well. You can't influence them as well. And so if they give you a crappy answer, it might be like, we're just looking at prices. We wouldn't know what it costs. Then we have a backup question that says, yep, price is important. Everybody that we meet with is on a fixed income, Social Security. And we ask this question. Mary, most of the people that we meet with fall into one of 3 groups. Most of you guys have heard this question, I'm sure. The first group is they have no coverage and they're concerned. The second group is they have some coverage, but they think they might need a little bit more. Or they think they can get a better deal. And the third group is they've kind of crossed their T's and dotted their I's, and they're thinking now about leaving a legacy. They don't need money for final expense. They've got their basics taken care of. They're a little bit more well-to-do, but they'd like to leave money behind to a particular child or grandchild. Which of those 3 best describes you? So what we're trying to do is narrow it down, right? And to do it, if it happens the ideal way, okay, then you're going to get that answer right up on the front end. I don't know where you were, or what was going on in your life. They're going to answer that question. It's going to be downhill. It's going to say, okay, so Mary, the rest of this is pretty smooth sailing. My job is to help you find out what can you qualify for and what can you afford. Okay? So guys, what happens is very quickly in the appointment, you are no longer a salesperson, you are more like a consultant. Now, you're helping them They've told you that they want the product. Now we're helping them just with the preliminary stuff, like the boring insurance stuff. It's like, okay, well, what company is going to cover you and what can we afford? So a lot of the hard work is done. So I just got my sign for 5 minutes, so time's flown by up here. I would say that the mindset, prepping yourself, is such a huge thing. It's so huge. People they really underestimate that. And then I think the transitional story that I just told you, if you incorporate that, and that's on my YouTube channel too, if you want to go check that out, then it's recorded. You can watch it, pause it, rewind it if you didn't get it all. But I think those are two things right there that are very impactful, that if you're not doing them, they will seriously help you in the home. So beyond the transitional story, after that, at least in the presentation I teach, we're talking about credibility. We're showing, hey, here's a copy of my license. Hey, here's some carriers that we represent. So what I'm doing, what I'm up here talking about is process. And so I find a lot of agents don't have a process. And so what do you have? You can tell, I have a process. I'm talking to you about how to get out of the car when you park it. So we need a process. And you come into the home, you build some rapport. The peak of the appointment is you're telling this emotional story. You ask a fantastic question. You evoke emotion. You ask an incredible question. You get an answer, because great questions get great answers. Bad questions get bad answers. Like in the fact finding, which comes right here after credibility, show the license, show the carriers, we go into a fact find. Mary, I'm going to take 2 minutes to ask you some financial questions, and then I'm going to ask you about some health stuff. Sound good? And I'm always incorporating this in the home. I'm nodding my head. Does that make sense? Does that sound good? Fair enough? And so all throughout the process, I'm letting them know, hey, here's what we're going to do next. Does that sound good? So there's no surprises. A lot about what we do is we're managing a client's expectations. And where you make expensive mistakes, every time you make a mistake in this business, in the early going, they're expensive. You lose, it's because you mismanage a client's expectations. You're quoting them a term product, $100,000 for $50. Then you ask health questions and you find out, oh, I should have done that the other way around. Because now I've shown them this great price and they don't even qualify for it. It's like me taking you for a test drive in a Mercedes and you fall in love with it, you want to buy it, but then you tell me you don't have a job. It's like you wasted a lot of energy. So we're constantly managing expectations. And so if you want to write these down, I've got to kind of close up here, but 1, turn your car into a rolling university. 2, do your best to approach the clients with a servant mindset. I'm here to serve, not to sell. Rapport building, a transitional story, find a story, borrow a story, and tell it. I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but think Matthew McConaughey, Lincoln commercials. Y'all ever wondered why they pay him to do those commercials? You guys ever heard him talk? When I drive a Lincoln. It's like he's serious about it. That's how you want to tell a story. Because if you don't have the guts to tell it like it's an emotional story, it's not going to evoke an emotion. So 4 is a transitional story. 5 is establishing some credibility. 6 is fact finding. 7 is the close. And beyond that, referrals, final questions, and what we call BAM, FAM, book a meeting from a meeting. So if you uncover annuity money in that fact find, you book a BAM, FAM, you talk to the 360 annuity guy, you talk to someone who can help you with an annuity, start getting those under your belt. At least find the money. People are willing to talk with you about it. So I'm going to wrap it up here. I think if I were to leave you with something, guys, I would say, I would go back to the story I told at the beginning. You know, if you want things to change sincerely, if you really want to do better in any area in life, you've got to work on you. You got to put the man together for the world to come together. Some people say, when you become a king, the kingdom appears. So, and you can do that. You can read books, you can listen to audios, you can attend events like this, and really, really start to change your thinking, because trust me, we get a lot of bad coaching on how we should think, just naturally, growing up. Even with loving parents, there's a lot of things we need to think differently about. So that does it for me. I hope that I've helped you guys. Good to go. Yeah, so that's it for me. Thank you for the opportunity. Hope you guys got some good stuff.